Welcome to Garden Grounds. This is the public mentoring Q&A I do every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. Please let me know if you can hear my voice. And on the screen, you should see Growing an Edible Landscape. I will be doing just a brief book presentation and signing at Queen Takes Book tomorrow if you live in Columbia, Maryland. That's in Howard County, Maryland. And the link is in the video, it's in the chat. We'll get started in a minute. And if you have questions, this whole live event is really for you to ask any garden question. Just put question in front of your question so that I can pick it out of the chat. Today's light subject is going to be on cucumber growing tips, and we'll get started in 15 seconds here. All right, let me just make sure the chat is up so I can see what's going on. And if you like this format, so this is the public live that I do twice a month. I also have perk memberships. Anybody that has a star, and the dark blue stars, those people are new, so welcome Rebecca and Jamie. It's a perk membership, so you can go to my YouTube channel, join, and I do this format 4 or 5 times a month, plus some other things, and you just go to my landing page, click join if you want to join, and if you are a member, just click the membership tab and it will just give you all the posts that I put in there, all the perk membership videos, anything you need to know to really know when the perk membership events are going on. So let's start with a question and then we'll talk about cucumbers. Dorothy, any thoughts on rain in mid-Atlantic, especially central Maryland? Do I need to do anything to protect my veggies fungal disease wise? Very good question, and I think that you do. Mostly for tomato plants, they get, when it gets, 50-degree nights, 60-degree days, it's on the colder side, prolonged rain, and just that slow kind of rain, it fills up the whole day. Your tomato plants can get a leaf spot disease. I forget the name of it. Septora, maybe, if I'm saying it right. Anyway, it's a fungal issue. It's a leaf spot, and it spreads pretty quickly in this cold temperature. So I did spray my plants 2 days ago before the rain really started coming here in Maryland, between the rain that was, a couple days before then, because that leaf spot, that fungal disease, is going to be an issue. So after the rain, if you want to treat your plant, you can go ahead and do that. You can treat after the rain using hydrogen peroxide spray. That will really clean the fungus off the leaves, believe it or not. If you check my YouTube videos, just search hydrogen peroxide in tomatoes, and it will go over with the recipe on how you make that and how you do that. But that's a really good question, and it's, fungal diseases like certain temperatures, like the early cooler temperature leaf spot, it's good to go away when the heat comes, and sometimes towards the end of July, early blight rolls into here, so I'm protecting my tomatoes from that. But I would go and check out your plants for any spotting, when this rain is gone, and treat appropriately. Travis, I have tomatillo plants that are still 2 weeks or so from being able to be transplanted outdoors. I noticed little flowers starting to generate. Should I pluck these off? And young suckers. Yeah, you don't have to necessarily remove the suckers. Tomatillos grow crazy. I'm assuming they're 2 weeks from being transplanted because the temperatures aren't right versus the plant size. Because if it's flowering, it's ready to go outside, I would remove the flowers. You just don't want the energy of the plant in a small container going to flower formation. And that's part of what I'll be talking about with the cucumber plants. In a second, I'm going to just probably start at 11:10 with the cucumber tips to make sure everybody, is signed in that wants to, hear about cucumbers. Any really plant that flowers as a transplant, I remove them. It also would be that if it's beginning to flower, you've probably been growing it too long indoors, and you really want to change up the timing next go around. Rebecca, if I use plastic pots to grow veggies. Do I need to worry about leaching? In my opinion, no. Leaching is real, but it's very overblown. And in a container with soil, it's only going to really leach and degrade when the sun hits it. So it's really protected. The plant would also have to pull in whatever's being leached, and it would have to concentrate in the plant. And it takes a lot for that to happen. For instance, people worry about using pressure treated lumber. 30 years ago, it was pressure treated with arsenic. They couldn't cut it in the Home Depot and Lowe's because of the dust was problematic. They switched over to copper. You build it, you raise bed. Yes, some leaching of copper comes out of the wood, but in order for it to get to a concentration that would harm you and I did a lot of research on this, and you can check it out if you want. You don't necessarily need to believe me. The concentration for it to harm us would kill off the plant before it even got there. Meaning that plant is going to die from copper leaching if there was a lot going on so early that we will never get that into our system through the plant. It would take a lot to harm us, and a little bit is going to damage the plant. So, and it doesn't happen. I've been growing in those raised beds for 20 years. Any tips for keeping woodchucks away? No, not really. I haven't found anything that keeps animals away except trap and release or a really good fence. Remember to put question in front of the question so I can pull it out of here. What kind of sprays besides hydrogen peroxide should I use because of all this rain? So, you can use any antifungal. Because it's raining, if you use baking soda spray or sulfur spray or any antifungal, a lot of it's going to wash off. But you can just pick one, that, you're comfortable with. You can use Daconil, which is a chemical. It's not organic. When you spray plants with that, it's waterproof. It stays on the plant for a good 2 weeks. Eaglet, how big does my tomato seedling have to be to be transplanted directly in the ground? It has true leaves but small. Plant stays outside all day. You can really put a transplant out anytime if it's been acclimated to the outdoors. You don't have to wait for a certain size. I live in zone 8 on the west coast. Transplanted my peppers into the garden 3 weeks ago, and we've had a lot of rain and temperature highs of 15°C, which, what is that, like 50 degrees Fahrenheit? The peppers are drooping, so it's a little bit colder. There's nothing you can really do. The plants will kind of shut down when it's cold. That's why you want to plant your peppers and tomatoes into warm soil, warm days. But of course, we get temperatures like this we can't control. As long as a frost and freeze isn't coming, the plants will work it out when the temperature is correct. Like we were saying, you can keep an eye on them for fungal issues. You can spray them when the rain goes away. But as it warms up, it should be okay. Janie, I saw your question, but make sure you guys put question in front because I'll be missing a lot. I have eggplant that flowered but produced no fruit. Are there any fixes? No. Eggplant is pretty much self-pollinating. You could, shake the flowers and have them pollinate, but, sometimes temperature and nature conditions play into that. It should start producing at some point. I accidentally bought bulk compost for raised beds. Can I grow in it? Compost is interesting. If it's fully broken down and great stuff and not a lot of wood additive to it, like real true decomposed organic matter that is broken down and is 100% compost, you can grow in it. If it's somewhere in between, still breaking down, or has a lot of woody material in it, sometimes it's hard to grow in because it's still decomposing, but it depends on the quality. Can I mix aspirin spray and baking soda spray together for tomatoes? Yes, those are two things you can mix. They don't react together. You could spray. Tonya, I struggle with cucumbers. The vine dies only after a couple of fruits. Any advice? No advice because I don't know exactly what's going on. But you can replant seeds and try and grow through that issue. Could be fungal. I don't think so. I don't know of a fungal issue that just attacks the stem. Could be a bug, insect. If it happens May, June, July, August, when you're growing cucumbers, I would be really concerned. If it's just at a certain time, maybe there's an insect or something around. All right, let's pause there for a second and talk about cucumbers. So now that the weather is warming, minus this little bit of cold trend, cucumber plants are vines, and we tend to sometimes buy transplants and pay $4, $5, $6 for a transplant. Often these transplants are stressed out, they're flowering, they've well past their prime. It's not really worth spending money. I really recommend you direct seed cucumbers, and I'm going to show you a video in a second. When you direct seed, the plant of course germinates, sprouts, but it's creating this massive root system, much better than we can do in a little transplant cup, even when we're growing transplants. And that root system really supports vigorous growth, and it's the best way to go. So I put cucumbers seeds in on April 15th. I'm going to show you them in a second. The plants are amazing. If you're growing them as transplants indoors, remember, when you have a little tiny container, you get a constrained root ball, lots of upper growth. You put it outside. You have to wait for the transplant to really have a root system grow and get established, which a direct seeded cucumber plant is already doing. And then once the roots are established, the upper growth goes. And my point is that you don't necessarily save a lot of time by doing cucumber transplants, because direct seeding is so easy, and it's just going to save you time. So let me show you the video. I'm going to talk through it if all goes well. Hang on. So today is 5/22. These are cucumbers that were put in on April 15th. Well, actually it was 3 seeds per hole, and I thinned them down to 1 plant. And they're just beautiful. I mean, look at that growth. And that was taken today. And then the National Picklings went in on April 22nd, and I put in 2 or 3 seeds, and I thinned them down to 1 plant per. And that's the general spacing. But they are healthier looking than any transplant that I've ever grown. And of course, you're going to need some trellising to take care of your cucumber plant. But I wanted to stress really in today's live Q&A that direct seeding cucumbers, squash, zucchini, cantaloupe, pumpkin, watermelon are really, in my opinion, the best way to go. If you have a really short season, yes, transplanting or growing transplants matters. If you don't have the room and you have other crops growing, then growing transplants does matter, because you're growing them while your garden is finishing up. But if you have the space, just drop in cucumber seeds. You can see April 15th is perfectly fine. Let them go. They're going to germinate in 5 to 7 days, even more quickly when the soil is warmer. And once they get set up, they just take off. And probably in 3 weeks, these are going to be producing. All right. If you have questions, again, throw a question out there. This is my public Q&A. Do this every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. I stay on for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. If you like this format, check out my YouTube channel, perk memberships, hit the join button. I do this format and some other things 4 or 5 times a month. And I just want to put my book up here. I have a book, The Modern Homestead Garden. If you're just getting started, this is great for new and intermediate gardeners. And my second book is Growing an Edible Landscape. And there is information on there, certainly how to set up a garden. Not as detailed as the first book, but this really talks about transforming your lawn, adding in different fruits, trees, edibles, vines, canes, bushes that you can eat. All right, let's get back to the questions real quick. So to go back to Tonia's question too, also with cucumbers, we can plant in, you saw April, May, let them grow. Disease and pests are going to come. When your plant starts getting beat up and it's dying off. Spend, don't overspend your time trying to save a plant. Put a new cucumber seed. So I plant cucumbers April, probably end of May, beginning of June, again in July, and again in August. Keep planting. You'll plant through the disease cycles. And if you're using seeds, a $2-3 pack will go a long way. I have a seed shop, therustedgarden.com, and I sell tomato and pepper seeds for $1.75, and all other seeds are $1.50. Let me put that in here. But direct seeding works really well for cucumbers, squash, zucchini, pumpkin, melons, all those kind of vining crops. And they do really well. And you can keep planting through the season. A lot of times we put our transplants in or seeds in May, the plants get beat up, we get frustrated, we stop. Cucumbers will germinate again 5 days, 7 days when it's warm. They're going to accelerate. They can be producing in 40 days. So you can really just keep putting new plants in throughout the season. Pam, my pepper, tomato, and eggplants have been hardening off, but not overnight yet. Tonight will be 43. Can I leave them out? I mean, you can leave them out. Cold sometimes, briefly shuts them down. They kind of hibernate. But it has to be consecutive, prolonged periods of cold. Just one night, I think they will be fine. That's one of the reasons and over time, I've changed how long I grow my tomato transplants. Really focus on the earth being warm, because it's the warm roots of your tomato, pepper, and eggplant that accelerates growth. If you grow like indoors, like you can start growing tomatoes in January here in Maryland, and you can grow them January, February, March, have a 12-week-old massive plant. You put it into the garden in April, it just sits there because the soil's not warm enough. So you're really getting the timing of the plants going into the right warmth for the soil. So I just saw this. Somebody went on vacation, Green Love, and 18 days later their garden looks like a jungle. Yeah, I mean, that happens. Even going away for 5 or 7 days, you come back, the weeds have taken over. Also, the plants usually explode too, but it's usually a combination of both. And then I'm behind. Like if I go on vacation, I really skip summer vacation because of the garden. But then you're behind and you're always playing catch up. Any thoughts on planting a very small Chicago fig? I read the roots can spread far and wide. I don't really think they do. I haven't had trouble with the roots. I would just put it in a place that you want. Let it establish. It's really easy to manage. They can get big if the conditions are right, but you can cut it back. Lily, I don't know why only 2 cucumber seeds germinated in the ground. If you're using the same seeds, they could have just expired, so you want to switch it up with a new thing of seeds. I purchased Miracle-Gro outdoor container soil, and has a lot of wood chips. In your opinion, will veggies be okay? I would check my YouTube channel again. Buying bagged soil products. I have this, issue with garbage being sold to us in these bags. Shredded wood chips can cause an issue because those wood chips break down. In order to break down, the microbes need nitrogen. So they take the nitrogen from your plant, and your plants can look stunted and yellow. The best thing to do is give it a drink of water-soluble fertilizer with nitrogen. What markers do you use for labels that is UV ray and waterproof? So I actually use wooden shims from Home Depot. They're used to level off doors and windows. You go to the lumber area and you ask for shims. I just write on there with a Sharpie both sides, because one side does eventually fade if it's in the southern sun, but then the other side is fine. Is it normal for potato stalks to become droopy? And guys, make sure you throw a question in front of your question. It has been very windy and dry here. There are some flower buds popping, but no flowers yet. So if it's been dry, drooping potatoes usually come because they need water. So definitely water them. But when they get tall and it's windy, they are going to flop over some. But if they've really dropped, they probably need more water. All right. Here's a question. Question. My transplanted patio cucumbers have done well in my green stalk original. Stunted. Do you direct sow cucumbers in your green stalk? Does it matter which tier? Oh, good question. So in a green stalk tower, it's usually 5 tiers, 7 gallons per tier. I am affiliated with them. If you use the code, if you want a vertical tower, let me put it in here. If you use that code, you'll save 10 bucks. And I believe the website is greenstalkgarden.com. So you get the vertical tower, 7 gallons per. I would, put the cucumbers in the bottom, and then they can sprawl out, but you could really put them anywhere. But I would go with a bush variety because, 7 gallons will work with a bush variety. If you're putting in bigger plants, they grow in a green stalk, but they take any container, they take the water and nutrients out really quick. So you have to replace that a lot. So the bigger the plants, the bigger the root systems, the more often you have to water. All right, and guys, if I missed your question or you didn't put question in front of your question, please put it back out there. If you have an urgent question, you can always do a super chat, and I will take that with priority. Also, if the plants are a little bit stunted in any container, green stalk or any container, or even in your garden, hit them with a water-soluble fertilizer. You can't really overfeed them. I mean, don't do it every week, but hit them, any stunted plant, with a water-soluble fertilizer. Best mulch for tomatoes and peppers and cukes. For mulch, straight grass clippings is fine. You put down about 3 inches, green, let it dry, turn brown, put more on throughout the season. It works really well. It's free. But I also like triple shredded, very fine shredded hardwood for my tomato, peppers, and garden beds. Sharita, my cucumber zucchini plants are growing beautifully from direct seeding in a 44 gallon, that's a good size, 44 gallon plastic container. What's the best way to get them trellising without breaking the stems? They are so big. Well, I mean, you have to be careful. I'm not sure what you're using for a trellis. You can put in tomato cages. You can get like 4-foot really thin bamboo poles, put them on the outside edge of the container. So like if this is the edge, the post goes in here so that the bottom of the post is pushing out, and then you pull the tops of the posts together, tie them off, and that makes a nice little teepee. But, I mean, you just have to kind of be gentle and, lift them onto the trellis that you're using. Congrats, though, on them being so big. And if you do damage a stem, I mean, it's going to grow back. So just, be careful. Appreciate the book plug, Dorothy. So you see Victoria and Tiny Purple, they have stars and circles next to their name. They are perk members if you're interested in becoming one. If I started cucumber seeds too soon inside, can I cut off the flowers and use the plant? I would start over, and this is the reason. Plants grow and they have this timing. You put in a seed, the roots form, the plant grows, it does its thing, and then it starts to flower and wants to produce. That cucumber plant would be okay. You could, cut the flowers off, take care of it, get it outside. It's going to take a while to get growing again, and sometimes they become like bonsai plants. If I'm growing cucumbers or zucchini indoors, nowadays I recommend a larger container, something like the size of my mug. And then from putting the seed in really 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, get it into the ground. From germination, 2 weeks, get it into the ground. You just really don't want it to be going into flower production mode and fruit production mode. And even though you might feel like you've wasted time, again, they germinate so quickly and grow so fast, you won't even remember it come, middle of the summer. If I use ammonium sulfate, Do you apply it dry? I mean, without more detail, the ammonium sulfate I imagine you're using to lower the pH, raise the acidity of your soil. You should have instructions on it. In some cases, I mean, sulfur is put out in a granular form. In other cases, you can mix it with water and water it in, but it would have to be water soluble. Mixing a fertilizer in water doesn't make it water soluble. It has to be, in a form that when it mixes with water, it readily dissolves. Dell, my daughter's garden is doing really well. She's been sending pictures of full harvests and meals that are like 90% of the produce. So it's good. I'm going to go down there next week actually and do some more videos. What is the ideal grow bag size for 2 cucumber plants? So what you saw, I'll just throw it back up there. This is 150 gallons and there's 4 plants in there. Now you don't need something that big. Let me get everything back up. But for 2 plants, that's a lot when they're mature. So a 20-gallon bag is pretty good, and I can't convert that to liters, sorry, for 1 plant. So probably 30 or 40 gallons for a full-size cucumber plant. The issue is not getting them started. It's when that plant is large and producing and, has a big root system that it becomes an issue. How deep does a soil bed need to be to grow watermelon, cantaloupe, and can I use cedar mulch? You can use cedar mulch. I'm not sure, Barbara, if you're asking, like, you built maybe a raised bed, let's just say on your driveway, and you're asking how deep does the soil have to be because the bottom is solid. I mean, if it's in the earth and there's no bottom, it doesn't matter. You can just plant them. If you're growing in some sort of container, you probably want a good 18 inches. What is that? 2 is 36, 45 centimeters. How tall do pole beans grow with an arched cattle pounded trellis? And how many plants do you recommend for a family of 5? That's always hard. I mean, beans really grow well. Pole beans can get 12, 14 feet tall. It just depends on the variety. So they're going to get very tall. And they're going to grow up at least to the center of that cattle panel arch. Green beans, pole beans, just like the cucumbers, I would plant them in stages. So you plant them now, plant them again in July because they tend to die out. I've got 4 plants in for a family of 2. I'm thinking, 8, 10 plants. But they're going to slow down on production. So after they start producing and they're pretty tall, put some seeds in elsewhere. It also depends. I always laugh because it depends on how often you you want to eat green beans. Like zucchini, you could do 2 plants and then all of a sudden you have more zucchini than you ever need for a family of 4 or 5. I would not trim your potato stalks. Let them be. They're taking in all the energy and creating potatoes from that. You could cover them with more soil if they're drooping over, no worries, but keep them well watered and they should be okay. So cucumber plants are susceptible to disease. And I was saying earlier, put your plants in now, however you want to do it in May. They're going to get beat up by disease and insects. They're going to die off. Don't overspend your time trying to save a dying plant. When your plant has been producing for a while, put some seeds in somewhere in the garden next to them. Let them start growing. When that plant is too sickly to keep, just yank it out. You can plant again cucumbers May, June, July, even August here in Maryland. Probably even September because the frosts don't come for a while. But you can, again, plant through the disease cycle. The diseases that usually come are cucumber beetles, which I treat by putting insect dust. You could use organic spinosad. You could use non-organic Sevin dust. Don't sprinkle it on the flowers. That's where you're going to put bees and pollinators at risk. On, several of the outer leaves, away from the flowers, just put your dust down. The cucumber beetles are really active, and they will run through that, and that will kill them off. That's the main problem that comes to the cucumbers here. The other thing that happens, and I'm in Maryland, and the other thing that happens is the sun. Sun is great. 8 hours is great. I get like 10 hours in my garden. Here's my garden, by the way. I get 10 hours in my garden. Mid-July, that sun is just crushing all of my plants. It's too much. So you can go ahead and put a 50% shade cloth over your cucumber plants. That cools the soil a little bit, blocks out some of the sun, and then that allows the cucumber to keep producing. Sunshine can become a problem, mid-July, 10 hours, 100 degree day, beating down, drying out the soil, overwarming the roots. Plants tend to shut down. That's what happens to your tomatoes and pepper plants. So in really hot areas, you can use shade cloth to continue with production. All right. Can a trellis be built that would allow the cucumber or tomatoes to grow up at an angle, then at about 4 feet up go horizontal, while letting the fruit hang down freely without stressing the plant? Yes, that's what as I was reading, that's what I was thinking. If you go at an angle, like a cattle panel arches like this, so I'm sending cucumbers up it, and the fruit will actually hang down. But if you go at a nice angle, you're going to start having your fruit hang, and then if you go, horizontal, you could walk through and just pick your cucumbers and stuff off of there. It won't stress the plant. It won't stress the plant out. I mean, they're essentially vines, so you're just guiding them as you wish. Again, guys, make sure you put question in front of your question. I seed my squash in bags with organic soil. They sprouted. Any suggestions appreciated? Well, if they are in a bag, you're going to have to water more frequently as the plant gets bigger, and you're going to have to really give them a water-soluble fertilizer probably every 2 weeks when they get to size. They just really need lots of moisture and fertilizer in the grow bag. All right, where are we at? If I've missed your question, please throw it out there. Question: if I use clean cardboard as mulch and then put wood chips on it, will the cardboard deter rain from reaching plant roots? I'm having trouble with quackgrass and its extensive rooting. So quackgrass and any grass that, puts out these roots is really hard to control. So to answer your question, yes. Soak that cardboard down a whole lot before you put the wood chips on it. It will begin to decay. Water will get through it. The other thing is you could poke holes in the cardboard. Anyway, the water will get to where it needs to go. However, it's not going to really kill out the quackgrass. It can survive just being dormant, and it does come back. If the grass is in paths, in your garden where you're planting, you don't want to use any harsher sprays, but I've spot sprayed in my garden paths where I have like thistle and roots that even if you break the plant off, they come back with a vengeance. Really spot spray them with a grass killer, and that works well. But in your garden bed, it's really tough. Sometimes getting in there and just yanking as much out as you can and then doing what you said can help. Just got 5 blueberry plants, still little sticks. 3 of one variety, the Recca, 2 other Top Hat. Mainly container garden. Any tips for first year planting? Will be in containers. No, they do well in containers. You want to try and go, with a bigger container, as big as you can. Um, blueberry plants can get tall, 3 feet wide, 4 feet tall, depends on how you're growing them. You want to set the soil up nicely, make sure there's drainage, and just, keep them fed. In containers, and blueberry plants tend to like more acidic soil. And what that does is it helps the root pull in nutrients. So you might want to try a water soluble acidic fertilizer. Like the only one I know of is Mere Acid by Miracle-Gro, but you can get any kind of acidic water soluble fertilizer, and that helps. Or add peat moss into the container, that brings the pH down. But just set them up well with some nice soil, and then you're just gonna have to manage the water and the feeding. You don't have to overfeed blueberry plants, but they're gonna need to be fed spring and fall, definitely, probably mid-season, nicely with a water soluble fertilizer. Question. I'm starting to grow berries, blueberry, blackberry, raspberry. Do I need more than one of each plant? So blackberries you don't, raspberries you don't. Blackberries I recommend getting a clumping variety blackberry, and we're going to finish up in 7 minutes. A clumping variety blackberry, this way it doesn't spread everywhere. That's what I have, and I think it's Arapaho. Raspberries can be very invasive, so put them in a place where they can spread and you don't have to worry about them. For blueberries, you do want at least 2 different varieties. That helps with pollination. Appreciate it, Barbara, for following me live. Poppy, I bought everbearing strawberries over a month ago and not producing many fruit. What do you recommend? There's nothing you can do to speed up the fruiting. The strawberries will establish. They can produce again towards the end of the fall, but it's much smaller. But if you bought them and you just put them in and they're just getting established, there's still a good chance they're going to produce in June. But sometimes the first year, they just have to get set up. The volume is up as high as it can be. So, and then the last thing for cucumbers, and then we'll wrap up, is I just want to stress again the idea that we plant once in May, they get sickly, they die off, and then we stop planting. Just direct seed your cucumbers in May, try it again mid-June, try it again towards the end of July, and you'll be really surprised how they can grow through the pest cycles and disease cycles. And sometimes the cucumbers growing out of the August heat into September produce the best. And it's a good strategy. Like, for some reason we get in our head that we plant stuff once, if it doesn't make it, we stop. You just keep planting cukes, zooks, and squash, through the season. They can be ready and producing in little as 45 days from putting the seed in the ground, especially when it's warm. And again, you can buy seeds at my seed and garden shop, therustedgarden.com. All the tomato seeds and pepper seeds are $1.75 a pack. Every other seed is $1.50. You can also get fabric pots there at a pretty good price. Peppermint oil, rosemary oil, and neem oil you can also purchase. All right, let's go through some questions. I'll stay on a little bit longer. We'll stay on to, I'll stay on to 11:50. All right, let me see. Can I direct sow bush green bean seeds in my green stalk? Yes, 100%. Bush green beans are perfect in a green stalk. I don't recommend an inoculant. Just, I've experimented with it before. It hasn't made a big difference. Just direct seed the bush beans into there. I have a new raised beds I made. I'm looking for soil to put in them. The big box stores are charging $33 for a 2-foot cubic bag of peat moss. And it's $17.77 for a 3 cubic foot bag in Arizona. Wait. Yeah, peat moss has kind of gone up. It's like $21 for a 2 to 3 foot cubic bag here, depending on what store you're buying it on. You don't necessarily need peat moss, but it is the best way to go about it. It's a little bit of money up front, But just mixing peat and your earth or peat and low-grade soil, you can make a great container mix. The other thing that you can do is order garden soil from a landscape company and they dump it on your driveway, and that's cheaper. Itachi cucumbers. I am not familiar with that. So I can't give you any suggestions. Questions. I planted spinach seeds numerous times outside. Still no luck with any of them popping up. They can be finicky. If the soil gets too hot, they don't germinate. But again, if you're planting and seeds aren't germinating and it's the same pack of seeds, and if you buy stuff from me and they don't germinate, just send me an email. We'll refund your money or we'll fix it for you. You might want to try a different variety. Coffee grounds don't increase in acidity significantly to worry about it. How can you tell the difference in small cucumber plants and zucchini plants? I mean, you can, but I can't describe it. It's too difficult. You can tell a little bit by the texture of the leaf, and then the first leaves that come out, the cotyledons, are different. Squash are usually bigger and rounder, and then cucumbers are smaller and more oval-like. But you kind of just have to kind of get used to it with experience. I have everbearing strawberries. This is their second year. I want to redo my beds. What time of year should I do that? I mean, like spring is best. Later fall is good. I would kind of let them grow now because they're going to put out so many runners wherever they're at. You can cut those runners off and then just press them into soil, put them somewhere shady. They'll root out. So you can really make a lot of strawberries. Can I grow potato slips in a green stalk? I'm assuming you might be thinking of sweet potatoes. You can. They're going to be taking up a lot of space. And in the 7-gallon container, I would only put in 1 or 2 slips per tier. Does that peat moss basically double in volume after it's watered and it's absorbed water? I haven't used it yet myself, but I'm thinking about it. Yes. I think it's almost double, but it's compressed and it's dry. So once you add water to it, it does expand nicely. It's really the cheapest way versus buying the bag stuff, which is usually garbage and expensive. And anyway, they just add peat moss to it and charge you more. So if you get peat moss, basic topsoil bags, mix it together, that's a great base to fill your beds. You can add compost and stuff later. Question, sugar snap peas, where are we at? 5 more minutes. Sugar snap peas have a white film on the leaves. What should I do? Is that normal? No, if it's actually a film, that could be powdery mildew, and that's not normal. Some leaves have white markings on it, and it's not a film or anything, that it's just part of the leaf. But if it looks like powder, it could be a problem. ProMix is actually one of the bags that I recommend. And again, they are peat moss, like Tiny is saying. All right, so we're going to finish up in the last 4 minutes. Throw out any questions you have. This is my first book, The Modern Homestead Garden. Great for new gardeners and intermediate gardeners. And it just provides a nice overview of how to have a modern homestead garden, in today's busy life. And then my second book is Growing an Edible Landscape, if you're interested in books. All right, here, 4 minutes left. My raised beds hold too much moisture for my tomatoes, so I'm putting in a short raised bed, but leaking water makes weeds. Should I plant thyme ground cover surrounding that bed? Let me think about that question. So I'm curious to why you think it holds too much moisture for your tomatoes. I'm assuming something's happening to the tomatoes. It's kind of hard for tomato plants to have too much water. You could always add in sand and other materials to that. If you put in a short raised bed that's leaking water, it makes weeds. Weeds are not going to come from the water. They're going to come from weed seeds being around. So you might have to do a lot of weeding to start. But if you keep the seeds down, that won't be an issue. But I'm not sure how to help you with your question. And Medicinal was starting a question. It's 4-foot high raised beds. I mean, they should drain really well. Yeah, I mean, I would really have to see the soil and understand more what's going on. Sorry, I can't help you more. My cantaloupe sprouted about 3 weeks ago, but they haven't grown any leaves, and they are looking a little yellowish. Well, if they're not growing, anytime something's not growing or is stunted, pour on any water-soluble fertilizer that you want to buy, and that should get them going. If that doesn't work, there could be an issue with your soil, which probably isn't, but I would replant. If you hit them with a water-soluble, or you hit any plant with a water-soluble, and they don't green up and take off in like 3 to 5 days, you might want to replant. Rabbit manure fertilizer is fine, as long as it's fully, decomposed. All right, we're going to finish up there. So this is my public mentoring or live question and answer called Garden Grounds. Do this every second and fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. So, I know that you have to subscribe to be able to ask a question, but if you turn on alerts, you'll be alerted to this event, twice a month. If you like this format, I have perk memberships. Go to my YouTube channel, hit the join button. You can join perk memberships. I do this format 4 or 5 times. Anybody you see in the chat with a circle and star are perk members. It's a much smaller group. I stay on for about an hour. We have light subjects we talk about. The group is very smart. They help each other out. But we do this, basic same format 4 or 5 times a month. And I think the lower tier is $3.99. And last question, is turmeric spray okay or will it hurt bees? I don't think that it will hurt bees, but I'm not sure what it's used for. I have not used it before. Any spray that contacts bees or pollinators directly has a chance of harming them. But for turmeric, if you sprayed it, it dries, the bees come around, it's not going to harm them. All right, I will see